Let me ask you something. Have you ever wanted something so badly that it kept you up at night, that it consumed your thoughts when you woke up in the morning, when you were at work, when you were eating? You were supposed to be relaxing, but your mind just wouldn't let it go. That's not interest. That's not motivation. That's obsession. And obsession is the single greatest force that separates the average from the extraordinary. See, most people don't fail in life because they're not capable. They fail because they dabble. They dip their toes in the water. They try things. But the ones who create success at the highest level, they burn the boats. They cut off every other option and they go all in. And when you go all in, when you let obsession take over your vision, something happens. Doors open that were invisible before. Energy comes from places you didn't know you had. Your life takes on a momentum you can't stop even if you wanted to. I want you to understand this. The world doesn't reward the person who's interested. It rewards the person who is obsessed. Every breakthrough, every revolution, every invention, every record-breaking performance, it came from someone who wasn't just motivated. They were possessed by their vision. They refused to settle. They lived, breathed, and bled for what they wanted. And here's the truth. You've got that same power inside of you. But until you stop treating your dreams like hobbies, until you stop letting fear and distraction dilute your focus, you will never taste the level of success you're truly capable of. This speech isn't about getting you inspired for a moment. It's about igniting a fire in you that doesn't burn out, a fire that turns into obsession, the very obsession that will make you unstoppable. So stay with me, because I'm going to show you why obsession isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. And if you listen closely, by the time we're done, you'll never look at success the same way again. When I talk about obsession, I'm not talking about some shallow, temporary excitement. I'm talking about that relentless hunger that takes root deep inside of you. It's the force that transforms a dream into a certainty. Most people live their lives trapped in maybe. Maybe one day I'll start that business. Maybe one day I'll get in shape. Maybe one day I'll take my shot. But obsession doesn't operate in the realm of maybe. Obsession says, this isn't a possibility, this is happening. There is no plan B, because plan B is failure, and failure is not an option. Think about the difference between wanting and knowing. When you want something, it's optional. If it happens, great. It doesn't, you'll live with it. But when you know, when you are obsessed, it's no longer an option. It's inevitable. And that shift changes everything, because the human mind will always find a way to manifest what it knows must be real. That's why when someone becomes obsessed, they start noticing things they never noticed before. The ideas, the strategies, the opportunities, they were always there, but obsession tunes your brain to a different frequency. Suddenly, path forward begins to appear, not because it magically showed up, but because your mind stopped looking for excuses and started looking for answers. Obsession is the reason the visionary doesn't see risk the way everyone else does. The average person sees danger. The obsessed person sees destiny. Where others see obstacles, they see stepping stones. They're not operating in the same world, because in their mind, the outcome is already real. It just hasn't caught up in the physical yet. That's the power of certainty. When you have certainty, hesitation dies. Doubt loses its grip. And certainty is born from obsession. Now, here's the hard truth. Most people never experience this level of certainty because they let fear dilute their vision. They think about what they want and then immediately think about everything that could go wrong. They let logic, circumstances, the opinions of others chip away at their belief until it's no longer a vision, it's just a hope. But obsession won't let that happen. Obsession protects your vision like armor. It doesn't allow you to entertain the idea of failure as permanent. It says, I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care how many times I get knocked down. This is mine and I will have it. And here's what's beautiful about obsession. It doesn't just change how you think. It changes how you feel. Think about it. When you're obsessed with something, it doesn't drain you to pursue it. It energizes you. The long nights, the early mornings, the endless repetition, it doesn't feel like a chore because you're pulled forward by something greater than comfort. People always ask, how do I stay motivated? Stop trying to stay motivated. Get obsessed. When you're obsessed, you don't have to push yourself. You're being pulled by the future you see so clearly that nothing can distract you. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who's obsessed with becoming the best in their field. They wake up thinking about it. They go to sleep thinking about it. They dream about it. Every action they take during the day is filtered through that obsession. Does this bring me closer to the vision? Does it pull me away? That level of focus creates certainty because they've eliminated the noise. And when the noise disappears, momentum becomes unstoppable. The truth is, most people never achieve greatness not because they lack ability, because they treat their dreams like side projects. They want it, but they don't need it. They wish for it, but they're not obsessed with it. And when life gets tough, when obstacles appear, when things don't go as planned, the wish dies. When you're obsessed, you don't let go. You hold tighter. You double down. You go deeper. Because obsession doesn't negotiate with reality. It bends reality. Think about any game changer in history. Do you think they were casual? Do you think they just wanted it? No, they were consumed. They had a level of certainty that most people couldn't understand. They weren't asking if it was possible. They were asking how fast they could make it happen. That's the difference obsession makes. And let me tell you this, you felt glimpses of it in your own life. Think about a time when you wanted something so badly you couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe it was achieving a goal. Maybe it was someone you wanted to win over. Maybe it was proving yourself in a way that mattered to you. Remember how you felt. You were sharper. You were stronger. You were more alive. That was obsession pulling you forward. The tragedy is that most people only tap into that state for moments instead of living there permanently. But when you decide to live there, when you decide to let obsession consume your vision, everything changes. Now, here's the key. You can't fake obsession. You can't pretend to be all in when you're not. The world knows. Your results know. Your own heart knows. Obsession is not an intellectual decision. It's an emotional commitment. It's when you draw a line in the sand and say, I will not go back. I will not settle. I will not stop until this is done. That's when obsession stops being a feeling and becomes an identity. And when it's who you are, not just what you do, certainty becomes unshakable. So the question is, what vision in your life are you willing to get obsessed about? What outcome is worth burning the boats for, cutting off all other options and declaring this is not negotiable? Because until you make that decision, you'll live in the gray zone of maybe, and maybe kills dreams. But once you flip that switch, once you move from wanting to knowing, from interest to obsession, from possibility to certainty, that's when success stops being something that chase and starts being something that chases you. And that is why obsession turns vision into certainty. When you look at the people who achieve extraordinary results, it's easy to think they were simply born with more energy, that they somehow have more hours in the day or more fuel in the tank. But the truth is, it's not that they have more energy, it's that they've tapped into something that gives them energy. That something is obsession. When you're obsessed, you don't wake up dragging yourself out of bed, wondering how you're going to get through the day. You wake up lit up because the thing you're chasing isn't just a goal. It's oxygen. You don't have to think about whether you're motivated. You don't have to force yourself to act. You're pulled forward. The average person spends their energy trying to push themselves through things they don't love, things they're half committed to. That's why they're exhausted. They're constantly battling their own resistance. But when you're obsessed, that resistance disappears because the thing you're doing isn't something you have to do. It's something you must do. And when it becomes a must, you find energy in places you didn't even know you had. That's why the obsessed outwork everyone around them, because they're stronger, not because they're luckier, but because they're fueled by a force that never runs out. Think about a time in your life when you were fully locked in on something. Maybe it was falling in love. Maybe it was a project you couldn't stop working on. Maybe it was an idea that consumed you. Do you remember how you could go without sleep, how you lost track of time, how you could pour hours into it and still want more? That wasn't willpower. That was obsession. Willpower is limited. Obsession is infinite. When you're obsessed, fatigue doesn't control you. Hunger doesn't stop you. Discomfort doesn't hold you back because you're not chasing comfort. You're chasing meaning. And that's the difference. Most people are tired not because they're doing too much, but because they're doing too little of what sets their soul on fire. Obsession flips the switch, replaces the grind of discipline with a pull of passion. That doesn't mean it's easy. It means it's worth it. And when something is worth it, you'll find energy you didn't think was possible. Look at the people who reach the highest levels, the athlete who trains when nobody's watching, the entrepreneur who works through the night, the artist who practices until their fingers bleed. They're not running on caffeine or hype. They're running on obsession. That obsession creates a current, a momentum, a relentless drive that makes ordinary effort look laughable. People ask them, how do you keep going? And they look back almost confused because to them, there is no other way. They're not choosing to keep going. They're compelled to keep going. Now here's the truth. You have that same potential inside of you. The only difference is what you've allowed yourself to become obsessed with. If your obsession is scrolling through distractions, binge, watching shows, or caring about what other people think, then of course your energy is scattered. Of course you feel drained. But when your obsession is something that elevates you, something that demands the best of you, suddenly the energy is there. Because energy flows to what you value most. And when you decide that your vision, your purpose, your dream is worth obsessing over, you start pulling from a deeper well. There's a reason why people who are obsessed seem almost superhuman. It's not that they are. It's that obsession has rewired their nervous system. Think about it. When you're obsessed, your brain is firing differently. You're not thinking about excuses. You're not dwelling on how tired you are. You're not distracted by little problems. You're locked in. And when your brain locks in, your body follows. That's why you can go longer, harder, faster than the average person, because your focus is creating fuel. But here's the catch. Obsession demands that you stop dabbling. You can't be half obsessed. You can't chase your dream when it's convenient and expect to feel that kind of energy. Obsession requires full immersion. It requires that you feed it daily, that you give it attention, that you nurture it until it becomes your driving force. And when you do, notice something powerful. People around you will wonder how you're able to sustain your pace, how you're able to show up again and again with intensity. They'll call it discipline. They'll call it talent. you'll know the truth. It's just an obsession. That's why obsession is so misunderstood. People look at it as unhealthy, as extreme, as too much. Let me tell you something. Average people will always call your intensity too much because your commitment exposes their lack of it. Don't let their labels water you down. What they call obsession, you call life. What they call crazy, you call necessary. And when you embrace that, when you allow yourself to go all in, you tap into an energy that feels unstoppable. And let's be real, you're going to face challenges. You're going to hit walls. There will be days when the weight feels heavy, when the world feels against you. But obsession makes those days fuel, not failure. Obsession is what gets you out of bed after rejection, what gets you back on the field after defeat, makes you send the 100th email, take the 1,000th shot, rehearse the 1,000th line. Because when you're obsessed, the idea of quitting doesn't even register. You might get knocked down, but your energy to rise is infinite. So when people ask, do I find the energy to succeed? The answer is simple. You don't find it, you create it. And you create it by being obsessed. Obsession is the ultimate renewable resource. It doesn't run dry because it's not powered by external circumstances. It's powered by the fire inside of you. And when that fire is lit, you can do things you never thought possible, endure things you never thought you could, create results you never imagined were within your reach. That is why obsession builds relentless energy. One of the greatest lies people tell themselves is that talent alone will make them successful. We celebrate the highlight reels, the finished product, the shining moment, but what we don't see is the obsession that created mastery behind the scenes. Obsession is the reason the musician spends thousands of hours repeating the same note until it's flawless. It's the reason the athlete takes the same shot again and again, not until they get it right once, but until it's impossible to get it wrong. Obsession turns repetition into mastery, and mastery is the gateway to greatness. Most people never reach mastery because they get bored with repetition. They want variety. They want entertainment. They want the quick thrill of doing something new. But obsession doesn't chase novelty. It chases refinement. Obsession understands that mastery isn't found in doing 1,000 different things once. It's found in doing one thing 1,000 times until it becomes part of who you are. That's why the obsessed rise above the rest. They aren't satisfied with being good. They aren't even satisfied with being great. They want to own their craft so completely that no one else can touch them. Think about the people who have redefined entire industries, the performers, the innovators, the athletes, the leaders. They weren't casual. They didn't practice until they could get it right when everything lined up perfectly. They practiced until failure was no longer possible, until excellence became automatic. The only thing that can drive that kind of relentless repetition is obsession. You can't do it if you're half interested. You can't do it if you're only chasing recognition. That kind of commitment requires being consumed by the vision of who you're becoming and refusing to stop until that vision matches reality. The average person practices until it's boring. The obsessed practice until it's beautiful. That's the difference. Repetition without obsession feels like a chore. Repetition with obsession feels like transformation. Every time you repeat the action, you're carving deeper grooves into your identity, training your mind and body to respond with precision. That's how champions are made. That's how legacies are built. Not by chance, not by luck, but by the willingness to repeat the fundamentals until mastery is no longer an achievement. It's a standard. And let me be clear, mastery isn't just about skill, it's about identity. When you're obsessed with becoming the best at something, the repetition doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you are, your nervous system. It programs your subconscious. It builds a version of you that doesn't have to think about excellence anymore because excellence has become instinct. That's why obsession is so powerful. It doesn't just push you to practice more, it transforms you into the kind of person who can't settle for less than mastery. Now, here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Repetition without obsession is torture. That's why people quit. They can't stand the grind because they're not in love with the outcome. They're not consumed by the vision. But when you're obsessed, the grind becomes your playground. You don't see repetition as punishment. You see it as progress. You don't dread the hours. You crave them because you know every rep, every drill, every practice session is pulling you closer to mastery, and mastery means freedom. It means confidence. It means walking into any arena, any stage, any challenge, knowing you're built for it. And here's something even more important. Obsession with mastery creates resilience. Because let's be honest, you're going to fail. You're going to fall short. You're going to mess up. When you're obsessed, failure doesn't discourage you. It teaches you. Every mistake becomes feedback. Every setback becomes a chance to refine. The average person runs from failure, but the obsessed person uses it. They replay it. They analyze it. They practice again and again until the weakness becomes strength. That's how you evolve. That's how you turn your flaws into weapons. Think about a boxer who studies their own defeats until they know exactly what went wrong, then spends months drilling the correction until the weakness is erased forever. That's obsession. Think about a speaker who practices their delivery until every pause, every gesture, every word lands with precision. That's obsession. Think about the inventor who builds and rebuilds prototypes until the design is flawless. That's obsession. Mastery doesn't happen by accident. It's engineered by repetition fueled with obsession. You've got to decide what you're willing to become obsessed with. Because if you don't choose, the world will choose for you. And the repetition of your daily habits will master you in ways you didn't intend. You'll master distraction. You'll master procrastination. You'll master mediocrity. Mastery is inevitable. You're always becoming a master of something. The question is, will you master excellence or will you master average? That choice comes down to obsession. Once you embrace obsession, repetition stops feeling like work and starts feeling like alignment. You start to realize that every hour you pour into your craft is a down payment on the future you're building. You're no longer practicing for applause. You're practicing for ownership, ownership of your skills, ownership of your confidence, ownership of your destiny. And when you reach that point, you stop comparing yourself to others because you know mastery isn't about competition. It's about elevation. It's about becoming so good that your presence speaks louder than your words. Most people will never experience that level of mastery, not because they aren't capable, because they weren't willing to be obsessed enough to repeat until it became theirs. But if you're willing to go there, if you're willing to get obsessed with the process, if you're willing to do it again and again and again, until it's good enough, but until it's undeniable, then you unlock a power most people will never touch. That's what obsession gives you. It makes mastery not just possible, it makes it inevitable. That is why obsession creates mastery through repetition. When people talk about success, they love to glamorize the outcome. They see the trophies, the applause, the wealth, the recognition. They don't see the sacrifices that were made along the way. They don't see the sleepless nights, the broken relationships, the hours nobody paid for, the risks that nearly broke everything apart. That's why so many people hesitate to chase greatness. They want the reward without the sacrifice. But obsession changes your relationship with sacrifice. Obsession makes what other people call sacrifice feel natural, even necessary. Because when you're consumed by a vision, giving up comfort doesn't feel like loss. It feels like alignment. Think about it. People sacrifice every day, whether they realize it or not. If you sacrifice your dreams for comfort, you pay a price. If you sacrifice your health for convenience, you pay a price. If you sacrifice your potential for distraction, you pay a price. The question isn't whether you'll sacrifice, it's whether your sacrifices are serving your future or destroying it. Obsession makes that choice easy. When you're obsessed, you don't see the late nights, the missed parties, the hard work as pain. You see them as proof that you're on the right path. Most people confuse sacrifice with suffering. They see giving up comfort as punishment, but obsession flips the script. To the obsessed, sacrifice is not suffering, it's strategy. It's an investment in a life so powerful, so meaningful that temporary discomfort is irrelevant. The average person asks, what do I have to give up? The obsessed person asks, what do I get to give up? Do you hear the difference? One sees it as loss, the other sees it as fuel. That's why the obsessed don't resist sacrifice, they embrace it. And here's the truth, if your dream doesn't demand sacrifice, it's not big enough, because anything worth having requires a price. You don't build a championship body without sacrificing junk food and laziness. You don't build a successful business without sacrificing security and predictability. You don't build a legendary career without sacrificing comfort and ease. The question isn't whether you'll sacrifice, it's whether the dream is worth the price. And obsession is what makes the price not only bearable, but exciting. When you're obsessed, you start craving the very sacrifices that scare other people. Waking up early becomes natural, staying up late becomes normal, saying no to distractions becomes automatic. People will look at you and wonder how you do it, how you live with such discipline, and you'll laugh because to you, it doesn't feel like discipline. It feels like freedom. Freedom to choose your destiny, freedom to control your future, freedom to live on your own terms. And that freedom is worth every so-called sacrifice. Now let's be clear, it's not always easy. There will be moments when the sacrifice stings, when you miss out on things your friends are enjoying, when you feel the weight of risk, when you wonder if it will all be worth it. That's when obsession becomes your answer. Because when you're obsessed, you don't measure the sacrifice against today's comfort. You measure it against tomorrow's vision. And when that vision is clear enough, strong enough, real enough, the sacrifice stops feeling heavy. It becomes light because you know exactly why you're doing it. The people who quit are the ones who try to chase success without obsession. They rely on willpower to push through sacrifice, and willpower eventually runs out. But when you're obsessed, the sacrifice doesn't drain you. It fuels you. It reminds you that you're serious. It confirms that you're all in. Every time you give something up for your dream, it strengthens your commitment. It hardens your resolve. It carves your identity deeper. You're no longer just someone who wants success. You're someone who lives for it. And here's something most people don't understand. Sacrifice creates separation. While everyone else is indulging in comfort, you're building capacity. They're distracted, you're sharpening your edge. While they're wasting time, you're stacking skills. And over time, that separation becomes so wide that they can't catch up. That's why the obsessed rise to the top. It's not because they're better than everyone else. It's because they were willing to pay the price that others refused to pay. But here's the beauty of it. Once you've paid enough of the price, once you've made enough of the sacrifices, you begin to live a life most people will never experience. A life of freedom, of mastery, of purpose, of impact. And in that moment, all the sacrifices that once felt hard fade into the background because the reward becomes so much greater than the price. That's the paradox. What feels like sacrifice in the moment becomes gratitude in the end. Think about the entrepreneur who sacrificed weekends, vacations, and comfort to build their vision. Years later, they don't remember the missed parties. They remember the empire they built. Think about the athlete who sacrificed nights out, junk food, and countless hours of rest. They don't dwell on what they gave up. They look at the medals, the championships. Legacy. Think about the artist who sacrificed stability and safety to pursue their craft. They don't regret the uncertainty. They revel in the art that outlives them. That's the power of obsession. It transforms sacrifice into fulfillment. Let's be real. This isn't for everyone. Most people aren't willing to give up enough. They want the life of the obsessed, but the habits of the comfortable. They want the results of sacrifice without making the sacrifice. That's why they stay stuck. That's why they stay average, because greatness requires obsession, and obsession requires giving up everything that doesn't align with your vision. If you're not willing to do that, then success will remain a fantasy. So ask yourself, what are you willing to give up? What comforts, what habits, what distractions are you ready to sacrifice for the life you say you want? Because until you answer that question, until you decide that the vision matters more than the comfort, you'll stay in the cycle of wanting without having. But the moment you commit, the moment you embrace sacrifice as a natural part of obsession, the game changes. You stop fighting the price and start owning it. You stop seeing sacrifice as loss and start seeing it as the path. And that is why obsession makes sacrifice feel natural. There's something magnetic about obsession. You can feel it when someone walks into a room. You don't even have to hear them speak. You can sense it in their presence, in their eyes, in the way they carry themselves. It's not arrogance. It's not luck. It's that undeniable energy that comes from being consumed by the vision. People are drawn to it because deep down everyone craves it, but very few live it. That's why obsession doesn't just change you. It changes the people around you. It attracts opportunities. It pulls allies. It demands attention from the world in a way that half-hearted effort never will. Think about it. How often do you find yourself inspired by someone who is casual, someone who dabbles, someone who's just interested? You don't. You're inspired by the ones who go all in, the ones who won't shut up about their dream, the ones who bleed their purpose, the ones who are so fired up you can feel it just standing near them. That's what obsession does. It creates a vibration, frequency that resonates far beyond words. People feel it, and when they feel it, they want to be a part of it. Opportunities don't just fall out of the sky. They're drawn to energy. Doors open for those who refuse to be ignored. When you're obsessed, your commitment becomes impossible to overlook. It creates trust in people because they can see that you're not a tourist, you're a resident in your vision. You're not passing through, you're here to stay. That kind of certainty pulls people toward you. Mentors who want to invest in you, partners who want to collaborate, investors who want to take a chance, friends who want to support you. The world starts aligning not because you're lucky, because obsession made you magnetic. And here's the secret. People want to follow energy. They want to join forces with someone who believes so deeply in their vision that it's contagious. When you're obsessed, you don't even have to convince people to believe in you. Your obsession does the work for you. It speaks louder than your words. It validates your actions. It proves your seriousness. People want to bet on someone who is all in. And when you're obsessed, the safest bet they'll ever make. But the opposite is also true. When you're half in, when you're inconsistent, when you're lukewarm, people feel that too. They hesitate. They hold back. They sense that you're not committed. They don't want to waste their energy on something fragile. That's why most people never attract the right opportunities, because they're not obsessed enough for others to trust their vision. Nobody wants to invest in maybe. They want to invest in must. And obsession is what turns your dream into a must, not just for you, but for everyone around you. Now think about the most iconic leaders, athletes, and creators in history. None of them made it alone. They had mentors, they had teams, they had supporters who believed in them. But what made those people believe? It wasn't charm. It wasn't networking tricks. It was obsession. Their obsession pulled people in. It made others want to be part of something bigger than themselves. Because that's another power of obsession. It creates vision so strong that it doesn't just inspire you. It inspires everyone it touches. Let's not forget, opportunities are everywhere, but most people never see them. They walk right past them because they're distracted, uncertain, unfocused. But when you're obsessed, you develop a radar. You see openings nobody else notices. You hear possibilities in conversations that others dismiss. You sense connections that others ignore. It's not magic, it's awareness. Obsession heightens your awareness to the point where opportunity can't hide from you. And when it appears, your energy makes it easy to claim because you've already proven that you're ready. People often ask, how do I find the right mentors? How do I get the right people to believe in me? The answer is simple. You don't chase them, you attract them. You attract them by being obsessed enough that your life becomes evidence of your commitment. When you're obsessed, you don't have to beg for attention. Attention finds you. You don't have to plead for help. Help comes looking for you because the world loves to pour fuel on a fire that's already burning. And obsession doesn't just attract opportunities, it filters them. When you're obsessed, you know exactly what aligns with your vision and what doesn't. You're not desperate for every chance that comes your way. You're selective. You can say no to the wrong things because you're so clear on the right thing. And that clarity makes the right people want you even more because they can see that you're not just chasing anything, you're building something real. Now, here's where it gets powerful. When you live with obsession, your energy doesn't just pull people in. It transforms them. People start to rise just by being around you. They start to raise their standards. They start to dream bigger. They start to commit deeper. Your obsession gives them permission to unleash theirs. That's how movements are born. That's how legacies are built. Not by one person chasing their vision alone, but by one person's obsession sparking the fire in others until it becomes unstoppable. But let me give you a warning. Your obsession will also repel some people. Not everyone will understand it. Some will call you crazy. Some will try to pull you back. Some will resent the way your energy exposes their lack of it. And that's okay, because obsession isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about attracting the ones who are meant to join you and repelling the ones who aren't. The fire doesn't apologize for burning. It simply burns, and those who want its warmth will come closer. Those who fear it will walk away. That's why you can't dim your fire to make others comfortable. You can't tone down your obsession to fit in. If you do, you lose the very magnetism that makes opportunities appear. Stay all in. Stay intense. Stay consumed by your vision. Because the right people, the right opportunities, the right doors will open. Not for the casual, not for the dabblers, but for the obsessed. That is why obsession attracts opportunities and people. There comes a moment when obsession stops being about achieving something and starts being about becoming someone. And that's the ultimate shift. Success isn't just about the money, the trophies, recognition, or the applause. Those are byproducts. The real success is who you are forced to become when you live with obsession. It stretches you, it strips you, it demands a version of you that you didn't even know existed. Once you've met that version of yourself, there's no going back. Most people live at a fraction of their potential, not because they're weak, not because they're not talented, but because they never demand more of themselves than comfort requires. They live with convenience, not obsession, and convenience doesn't transform you. Convenience keeps you the same. But obsession changes your wiring. It changes the way you think, the way you feel, the way you act. It forces growth because nothing less will sustain it. Think about it. When you're obsessed, excuses can't live in your system anymore. You stop tolerating little lies you tell yourself. You stop accepting mediocrity from your own hands. You stop allowing fear to run the show. Obsession replaces excuses with solutions. It replaces fear with urgency. It replaces procrastination with action. And in the process, it reshapes your identity. You're no longer the person who wants to succeed. You're the person who must succeed. Here's the beauty of it. You don't even recognize the strength you've developed until one day you look back and realize the things that used to break you don't even shake you anymore. The challenges that once felt impossible now feel like warm-ups. The fears that used to paralyze you now fuel you. That's the gift of obsession. It doesn't just give you results. It forges resilience, focus, drive so powerful that nothing external can match it. Every person you admire, every leader who left a mark, every creator who reshaped history didn't just build success. They built themselves in the process. Their obsession wasn't only about what they were chasing, it was about who they became because they refused to live with half measures. That's why when people say obsession is unhealthy, I say no. Obsession is the healthiest thing you can have when it's aligned with your vision because it purges you of weakness and introduces you to your true power. Now, let's talk about the hunger obsession creates. When you live with obsession, you never plateau. You may hit milestones, you may achieve goals, but the obsession doesn't let you stop there. It pulls you toward the next level. It demands that you keep expanding, keep learning, keep evolving. That hunger is what makes the difference between people who win once and fade and those who win again and again and again. Because the obsessed don't celebrate at the finish line, they use it as fuel for the next race. Here's what happens when you sustain that obsession long enough, life bends to it. The world starts reflecting back the identity you've built. People start seeing you as the authority, as the leader, as the example. You become the person others point to when they talk about what's possible. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's what happens when obsession molds you into someone unshakable. But let me make something clear. This isn't easy. Obsession will test you. It will demand sacrifice. It will ask you to give up comfort, relationships that don't serve you, distractions that waste your energy. It will make you uncomfortable. And at times it will feel like it's costing you everything. That's only because it's clearing out the noise so you can finally meet the strongest, most capable version of yourself. Obsession doesn't take from you. It gives to you, but only after it strips away what no longer belongs. And what you'll find, you stick with it, is that obsession creates freedom, freedom from the average, freedom from the ordinary. Freedom from the chains of self-doubt and mediocrity. Because once you've lived at the level obsession requires, you can't tolerate the old life anymore. You can't fit back into the smaller version of yourself. You've outgrown it. And that is the greatest reward of all. Not just the success you built, but the identity you forged. So if you're listening right now and wondering if obsession is worth it, let me tell you this. The real question isn't, is it worth it? The real question is, what's the cost of living without it? What's the cost of never knowing who you could have become? What's the cost of staying stuck in a life that doesn't demand your best? What's the cost of settling for good enough when greatness was possible? That's the pain obsession saves you from the pain of regret. Because at the end of your life, you won't care about the nights you lost sleep, the sacrifices you made, the struggles you endured. You'll care about one thing. Did you become everything you could be? Did you leave it all on the field? Did you burn with such intensity that the world couldn't forget you were here? That's the question obsession answers. That's the question only the obsessed get to say yes to. And that is why obsession creates not only success, but transformation.